back and we're going to talk about diesel engine oil. And you know, diesel guys have been doing extended intervals for a very long time, so that's not new to the diesel side of the fence. I can remember back owning a 2000 Ford Excursion with a 7.3 and changing oil every 10,000 miles back then, and that was even before today's modern oils that we have now. I mean, that was almost 15 years ago now, and things have improved dramatically. And that, you know, we didn't have full synthetics for diesels back then. So you look at that today, and you brought up a great point. Those guys have already been doing it, and there's a reason for that, and a lot of that now has transitioned over to the gasoline side.
But you know, you said something the other day, the reason is, there is a reason to do that. And you start talking about, back in even on the passenger car, where you change it, what goes on, and start profiling that customer.
Right.
Now, like I told you before in the segment, we've been blending oil since 1929. We've had our own in-house laboratory for the better part of those years have been, you know, since we've been in operation. One of the things we found out on off-road applications, if your oil is still doing the job, that equipment's making money.
That's right.
If on a fleet application, if that truck is still moving,
That's right,
he's making money with that deal. So now as the engine manufacturers and the CAFE requirements that Gary brought up earlier starts putting in, and then you have the emissions rules that start moving product out of the smokestack back into the motor oil. But as engine oil evolves, so does your oil analysis evolve. Now, we recommend, as a matter of fact, we will not recommend extending an oil drain on the diesel application without a good preventive maintenance program.
Okay.
To be able to pull samples at a certain date, and we start looking at, okay, your engine manufacturer recommends either 200 hours on an off-road or 20,000 miles on or 25,000 miles on a non-road vehicle. Well, we'll start there. We start looking at what that engine is doing, how the oil is performing in that engine, in that engine's duty at that time. Okay, now let's try 5,000 more, or let's try another 100 hours more, let's try 10,000. We will walk
you're
them
baselining
up.
it to begin
We'll
with.
baseline to begin with.
And in a fleet operator,
Right.
that may not be the same for every vehicle they have.
Right.
Because
Yes,
every
fleet
driver's not the
operators-
same.
You're exactly
Best
right.
fleet operators taken on a unit by unit
Yeah,
basis.
Absolutely.
Because each unit's being used differently, to you guys'
John, you're
point.
exactly right.
Different
And
driver.
Yeah.
you know, just based on a real quick story to tell you to kind of put that in perspective, we have a big aggregate company we call on in Texas and take care of their lubricant needs. They have a lot of front end loaders that are in this aggregate deal, and each driver is assigned to a loader.
Got it.
Okay, and each loader has a unit number assigned to us for us to follow the testing data. We were watching these two loaders and going on and watching. We had the apparatus set, and on oil analysis, it's all built on trends.
Got
You
it.
start looking at where your wear metals should be and how they should work, and you start looking for trend changes. Well, we noticed one of the loaders' trends started changing, and all of a sudden something started happening to the oil analysis are coming back. So we started to do some research on the back side of it. One of the guys had gone on vacation, extended vacation. His wife had had a baby, and he was gone for 6 weeks with his wife.
Wow.
Well, a new driver was in that loader for 6 weeks. That new driver drove that backhoe or drove that loader different than the other driver did, and you could see how they
Interesting.
moved, and so you can really fine tune a diesel by oil analysis. And so when you start looking at extending the drains on heavy duty and diesel, do it by trends, get it in, or don't just, if somebody comes in and tells you that I can take you to 40,000 miles or 400 hours right off the bat, run, just wait a minute, let us build up to there, we'll get you there. And we'll get you there by unit, as Gary talked about, and by performance, and being able to take you there to protect your engine, be able to keep that piece of equipment moving and making you money on a
And
day-to-day basis.
that goes right along with what we say on following the drain intervals of the OEM manufacturers. If you'll look in the owner's manual on these heavy duty engines, they'll give you that mileage interval,
Right.
but then they'll say, you know, do not go to extended drains without the proper maintenance program and oil analysis. I mean, they speak to it in the owner's.
Which I'll put a plug in for these guys real quick. Some of you guys watching this that are fleet operators, or you own, you know, several diesel trucks. Maybe you don't consider yourself a fleet, but you've got, you know, 2 or 3 vehicles. Well, you know what? That's a fleet. You can buy oil directly from these guys. We've got programs, especially in our Denver market, but you guys have these programs all around the country where you can buy universal oil, use that. You guys have a great program for doing the oil analysis on fleets, which I'm aware of because we're now doing that in my fleet, and I'm anxious to see as we start to trend some of these things, you know, where I can go on some of these oil changes. And I'm guessing I'm going to be able to extend some of what I've been doing in the past, just because we'll have data now to prove that, versus me thinking seat my pants what we should or shouldn't be doing, which is what you're doing otherwise.
Yeah,
If
you're not
if you're
guessing,
that's
you're
right.
actually making an informed decision.
Thank you. Yeah, if you don't have that data in front of you, taking that sample, which we went through the lab yesterday on how all that's done. So
Right.
when that sample comes back to these guys here, they analyze all of that, and you know specifically whether there's more life left in that oil or not. And if in some cases you may find, hey, you went over it a little bit, you better back that up some. But to your point, if you don't have some trends, you don't have any idea how that works.
Well, the other thing, and I just throw this in there, when we're doing sampling, when you're looking at particularly a large engine, one of the bigger dump truck
Right.
or an over-the-road truck, a piece of off-road equipment, I mean, you're looking at an engine that may cost more than the average car.
That's right.
And if we look for antifreeze in the oil, and if you can catch something
Right.
in the very early stages,
Right.
sometimes those repairs are much
That's right.
less
So
costly.
it's even a maintenance item,
Right.
or preventative maintenance item by doing the oil analysis to catch some of those things. To Gary's, and to Gary's point,
Absolutely.
even some of you listening, you know this too. Any diesel engine is triple the price of its gas counterparts. I mean, even take a new Ford, a 6-liter Ford or a 6.7 Ford or a Cummins or whatever. You're 15 grand by the time you get that engine changed out. To Gary's point, there's new cars you can buy that cost that.
Yeah.
And now you move up into the spectrum of even over-the-road trucks, et cetera, and those engines even, you start adding, in some cases, depending upon the engine, how big it is, you can be $20,000-$30,000 for an engine very easily.
Even more than that,
Or more.
yeah.
Yeah, 50,000 on some of the ones some of these loaders and stuff that we're talking about can even go up from there. So the key is good quality oil, analyzing it to make sure that you really know where you're at, and then going with those extended intervals after you've got your data. So real quick, just as a side note, same rule of thumb, can you do that for gas engines?
We don't do a lot of testing on gasoline engines, and it kind of goes back to what you just talked about with the price difference.
Got it.
Normally, you're dealing with a smaller sump size. A 12-gallon oil change on a heavy-duty engine is more expensive than a
Correct.
4 or 5 quart oil change in a passenger car. And so we don't do, when we'll do a gasoline engine oil sample, it's usually when a shop has a concern with a vehicle that maybe
Got it.
something was contaminated or
Wearability,
something.
things along those
Yeah.
lines, et cetera.
Right.
Got it.
But as an everyday rule, we don't really do much gasoline engine oil testing. Most of our stuff's more
Got it.
diesel and heavy-duty diesel.
Well, your downtime for a consumer doesn't cost them hundreds of dollars an hour.
Correct.
Yeah, you can go
Like
and
it
get
does
an oil
for-
change in
yeah.
30 or 45
That's right,
minutes.
that's right. Yeah, great
That's a
point,
big part of
great
it.
point. All right, guys, we'll be back right after this, so stay tuned.